What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes, and this is gonna be a unit review and build guide for the units from Where It All Started banner, which is a seasonal banner. And as always, I want to thank ShailorMercury for the graphics. Her link is gonna be in the description. So let us begin and let us start with Marth. So Young Marth is a 4-star focus unit of this banner, so it's really easy for you to plus and merge him. As for the mats, on average you need about like 500 to 600 orb at max to plus and merge him, and if you're in the 99th percentile, then yes, 763 orbs, but that's really not going to be the case most of the time. In this banner itself, I've seen so many people get plus and Young Marth in like 300 to 400 orbs, and this data you're seeing right now was generated by having over 200,000 summoning session samples, and there's a site for that for summoning simulations, so you can check that out in the description. It's really good for planning and stuff like that with your orbs. So it is definitely possible for you to plus and merge him if you have the orb for that, and if you really like him. Now the reason why he's such a good investment as a plus and unit is because he can score 175 BST after his +1 merge, so he can be a really good unit for Arena, and just in general, you know, he is a really good unit because of having Rapier, having the dual effectiveness, and having inbuilt Vantage into it. Sure, it's same as Fina's weapon, but Marth is just way better than Fina just in terms of stats, and he also has a preferred special, which is Hero's Blood, which is same as Fire Emblem from Legendary Marth, and it does scale off based on his speed, so it can give him a pretty good damage output, and it also gives him and his allies buffs, and it's just a 2-turn cooldown special. So Marth is pretty underrated on this banner, and I would personally say that he's kind of the hero of this banner, at least in my opinion. So now I'm going to compare my stats which I speculated with the actual stats. This is something which I do and I find it really fun. So for Young Marth, I was pretty on point, just 1 point off from his attack and defense, and I was just 2 points off from his resistance. I was on point with the speed, so overall I'm pretty happy with that. And his stat spread is really balanced, you know, he can function as an offensive unit and he can still take some hits here and there. His speed is a really good thing. He already gets plus read from Rapier, so he ends up at 40 base speed. Having effective damage against armored and cavalry units is really good, as we have seen time and time again. And even if you do not go for plus and merge, just a one-off copy of him can be used in something like Arena Assault. And having Vantage in your weapon frees up your slot B skill, and you can combine Vantage with many of the really good skills. And I've got some build options for him right here. So if you get him, and if you're just going to be using a one-off copy, then Fury Desperation is honestly pretty good because it makes him a mixed phase unit. You could also run his default shield skill, but Desperation could be helpful in something like Arena Assault. And Brazen Attack Speed is of course really good, increasing his speed and also giving him more attack for stuff like Vantage. And the other builds which I have is for +10 Marth. So you could still run this on a like low merge Marth, but I just have plus and merge here because I know a lot of people are probably going to be going for him for the +10 merge. So Special Spiral is of course a really good option, makes him into a mini Ares in a sense because he's got Vantage in his weapon. So you can just spam Hero's Blood again and again, and this allows him to just buff himself and his allies. Now that could be a problem because you're going to be susceptible to panic, and he doesn't really have the highest HP, so that could be troublesome, but still this is a strong build. Lull Speed Defense is also a really good option and goes perfectly well with the 2 stats that he cares most about. So he's going to be ignoring speed buffs of the foe, and that allows him to just double more, and defense is also nice for getting more damage. And then we have got some other builds with Wrath. So the first build is utilizing attack speed push 4 instead of distant counter. So if you just want to use him without distant counter, then this is the build. It does have good synergy with Wrath, and Time Pulse is also such a good skill for him because Wrath and Time skill do stack when he's in the range of Wrath, and that also combines with his Rapier range. So all of these skills are going to be activating together, and Wrath just gives him more damage output, which is good for Vantage sweeping. And now we have some builds for Ether Raids. In the Astro season, he can be really nice for taking on Cav lines because he can run Null Counter Disrupt, and that makes him pretty strong as a check to Cav line because he also has effective damage on them. Usually Cav lines run Ward Cavalry, so that makes those healers and all of those cavalry units really bulky, but effective damage on the cavalry units is going to be helping you a lot. And you could also use him as a tank with Close Call or Repel in Light Season, especially because he can get the speed buff from Peony. So he can Vantage Sweep and also abuse his speed with Close Call. From my experience, melee Vantage users aren't really all that good in Ether Raids because they cannot really snipe the units on the back line of opponent's team, which might have hardy bearing. So for that, close counter Vantage units in my opinion are a bit better than distant counter Vantage units, but still nonetheless this is an option. Now you would have noticed that I've got attack IV for most of these plus in builds, and then I've got plus speed IV for this build. Now the reason for that is that I think that at lower merges, plus speed IV is definitely better to, you know, do more doubles and avoid doubles. But if you're gonna be going for the plus in merge, then I think plus attack IV is much better because plus speed IV only gives you 1 extra point of damage from Hero's Blood, but having plus attack IV gives you extra 3 damage per hit without the special, and having more attack is really good for a Vantage Sweeper, and also if you have an effective weapon, and Marth has got both of those things. So in my opinion, at higher merges, plus attack IV is better unless you're running close call or repel 3 build, and at low merges or unmerged, plus speed IV is going to be a bit better for you. So yeah, that's the whole thing with Young Marth. I do think he's a really good unit for that kind of investment, and you could compare him to Astrum and Itsuki, who are also some really good free-to-play options to plus and merge. In my opinion, he is better than Astrum, and he also can buff his allies with Hero's Blood. You just have to proc his special, and Rapier's effect is much better than Mercurius in my opinion. Itsuki is not really as fast as Marth. He cannot really run close call or repel builds, but he does have more bulk than Marth, so he can function better as a tank. And Marth does have effective damage on armored and cavalry units, and that armor effectiveness is going to be helping you tremendously in Arena, and even outside of Arena, he is just going to be a pretty nice unit to use. And now let's move on to the next unit of this banner, which is Caeda. So Caeda, these are the stats which I expected on her, and they pretty much align with that. I was expecting her to have anywhere from 32 to 34 attack, and she ends up with 33, which is not really all that much. And she does have 42 speed. I was expecting somewhere around that, and she doesn't have that much resistance as I expected. She ends up with 30 resistance, which is not a lot, and some really powerful mages can just take her out, so her bulk isn't really all that stellar, honestly. She does get the -5 attack debuff on the foe with her Belief in Love, slot B skill, but still, that is not really enough. And as for her attack, it's not really too high. She doesn't even have an attack super boon on it. Of course, having attack boon is going to be helping you, but still there are many units who can still survive this. But still, you know, she is a good unit. Having effective damage against 4 weapon types and 1 movement class is really good. And it also has inbuilt Vantage, so she has got 2 conditions by which she can activate her Vantage. Either she gets attacked by any of those units who she has got effective damage against, then she'll have the Vantage even at 100% health, and that is pretty strong. Or she could enter the Vantage the good old way. But Caeda unfortunately is not really able to use Vantage to that degree as Marth because she's a flying unit. She doesn't really have a lot of slot B options like Marth has got, which you just saw. So Belief in Love is basically going to be her best skill to run in slot B with this kind of Vantage build. And with Vantage, you always want to have more and more attack. Caeda doesn't really have that much base attack, and the 19 Might Feather Sword kind of makes up for that. Belief in Love also does that, but still, it's not really going to be enough to really one-shot a lot of really bulky armor units, and even outside of armor units. But still, nonetheless, she's a good unit, but not really as good as people were thinking she was. She has 3 super boons in HP, speed, and defense, but ultimately you need to have the attack to one-shot a lot of threats with your Vantage. So Caeda can struggle against some of those units, but against offensive units who are really frail, Caeda is going to be able to just one-shot them. Now keep in mind, Caeda's Vantage at 100% health does not really work against mages, dagger units, beast units, dragons, and also colored bows and dagger units. So if you have any of those units, it should not be that hard to take her out and just one-shot her because of her low bulk. Now let's go over some of the builds I have for her. So her base kit is already pretty sufficient, so you just need to run reposition on her and something like Fierce Stance for enemy phase as a budget build, or you could also run Defense Smoke, which can help her get more one-shots. And the last build is for the Caeda enthusiasts who are going to be going for her plus and merge. And you are probably going to be seeing plus and Caedas in Arena from time to time, so she's always going to be a nuisance there. And you could use a plus and Caeda yourself and something like Ether Raids, I guess, because of Vantage. Keep in mind, she doesn't really activate her Vantage at full health against mages and dagger units, and those units are really common right there. So you would have to go into the Vantage by having something like a Bolt Trap or by just surviving a hit. Also, if you use Caeda in Ether Raids, then you have to watch out for Hardy bearing Sacred Seal because it will just disable her weapon's Vantage effect. And of course, you could use her in the player phase with a cheap build like this at low merges. Now, I know it just removes all of her premium options that she comes with, but in Arena Assault against plus and merge units, she's really not going to be able to one-shot a lot of them, and she kind of needs a double, and you can make use of her speed with something like Desperation and use her with a Dancer to pick off a lot of threats. So there, that can always work out for you. The next unit we have is Palla, and we already knew her stats from the video, so didn't really need to speculate that. And she's basically a Fire Emblem unit. You have to run her with flying allies, otherwise she isn't really all that good. But in a Fire Emblem team, she is absolutely insane and busted, because just by having 3 or more flying allies on a team, you're able to get -4 attack and defense debuff on the foe, and she gets to make a guaranteed follow-up attack, which is huge because she doesn't really have the speed to make natural doubles. So that is so good. And if she's within 2 spaces of 2 or more flying allies, then she can attack twice. So basically, she gets a brave weapon effect, and she can just quad attack with a Fire Emblem team and be extremely powerful because her base attack is quite high, and this weapon gives her +3 attack on top of that. And she also has an attack super boon if that wasn't enough. So she can be a force to be reckoned with in Fire Emblem teams. So if you really use a lot of flyers and just Fire Emblem teams, then she is an extremely strong option. And her duo skill is also good for Fire Emblem teams because they already have such good mobility, so having extra 1 movement on them is pretty insane. Now beast units already have 3 movement, but if you're not really using any kind of beast unit, then this kind of duo skill can help you a lot by giving the extra movement, and you could just go in and wreak havoc with a lot of Gale Force flyers or just flying nukes in general. She's a duo unit, so she does have the 185 BST dual effect, so you're probably going to be seeing her quite a bit in Arena because a lot of whales are definitely going to be going for her. And in something like Water Season, like she could be combined with Legendary Azura and Legendary Ryoma, and she can just quad attack your team, so you definitely have to watch out for that. And let's go for some of her builds. Her first build is just the cheap build. You can run Luna, and if you're running her on a proper team like you should, then she can trigger Luna on her 3rd hit. And her second build is using Desperation, so Mirror Impact does make it pretty easy to get into Desperation range, and once she's in the Desperation range, she can fire off quad attacks consecutively. The third build is a build which you could do if you get a plus attack IV Palla, because her attack is so high that you could just run Heavy Blade 4 honestly. You don't really need any kind of slotted skill. Heavy Blade 4 with Gale Force and Quicken Pulse is going to be really nice because Gale Force becomes a 4-turn cooldown special, and Heavy Blade also provides you with the true 5 damage. So if you're not really going to be going for a premium option, then even Heavy Blade 3 can work with this because already her attack is so high, and if you give her Fire Emblem buffs, then she's like at 70 attack, which is ridiculous. And at that point, you could just run this in slot A and maybe have Heavy Blade on some other unit as a Sacred Seal. And the last build is basically for Rooker Siege because Rooker Siege right now is going on, and Est, the normal S, is basically one of the best units to be used in Rooker Siege because of her weapon Refine. So you could run this kind of build. Guard is there so that the Rooker does not charge up their special. Breath of Life is there to heal up your dancers. Ideally you want to run her with 3 flying dancers. 2 of them can be Raisin so that she can recover HP, and Mirror Impact and Sturdy Blow just gives her a lot of damage output. Nastra is a top tier skill in Rooker Siege. So if you get Palla, you could obviously use her in Rooker Siege with a build like this. The final unit we have on this banner is Young Merric. So these are the stats which I speculated for him. I was on point with this attack, but I was quite off with the other stats. He has got 3 more speed than I expected, quite less defense, and he has got more resistance for some reason. I thought they would make him kind of like normal Merric, where he has got more defense than resistance, but in the end, he does have not very high mixed bulk. So Winds of Change is a preferred tome that gives him -1 special cooldown, makes his Righteous Wind a 1-turn cooldown special, which is really good, and it's effective against flying foes just like Excalibur. And at start of combat, if he's got a visible buff or a status, or if he's just above half health, then he gets +5 speed and attack and just has null follow-up effect. So that is extremely useful, and that actually combines with Wind Sweep to give him a pseudo Fire Sweep tome effect against physical units. So as we have seen with Byleth, null follow-up and Wind Sweep allows you to double while also not getting counter-attacked. So that is extremely powerful against physical units. If you want to have that kind of Fire Sweep effect against mages and dragons, then you can just run Water Sweep honestly. And his Righteous Wind is a special that scales off based off his speed, and it restores 10 HP both to him and his allies after combat. So all of his allies get 10 HP after his combat if he triggered this special, and this special does not stack if you trigger it twice in a combat, which makes sense. So basically like a Heavenly Light effect, which healers have got, but Merric is an offensive unit, super offensive than healers. So that is a very interesting special, and this makes it so that you want to run him with teammates who want to be at full HP, just want to be healthy, like bulky units and tanks. in general, you don't really want to run this with units who have got Vantage, Desperation, Wings of Mercy, Escape Route, any of those things, because it does have anti-synergy with that, and it might just knock you out of the range of those skills on those teammates. So Merric is a very offensive, fast unit that also brings utility in forms of healing for his teammates. For his builds, his first build is a budget build. You can just run Swift Sparrow as the Sacred Seal and Drawback as a special. Nothing really to change. And if you want to go with some other option for slot seed, then Savage Blow or Rest Smoke can work. And the second build is using Time Pulse. Now you might ask why Time Pulse is needed. He already triggers his special on the second hit against physical units pretty easily. The thing is that Time Pulse makes his special ready at start of the combat. So against bulky dragons who have got distant counter and bulky mages, this is going to be helping you a lot because you could trigger his special twice in a combat, and that is pretty devastating, honestly. And the third build is not really the most unique build for him. It just takes out all of the unique things which he has got, but it is a build nonetheless which you could run on him because of the -1 special cooldown that he has got. So he could run an infinite AoE build. He doesn't really have the attack of Ophelia, and it's not really as easy to set up as her, but still this is an option nonetheless, and Life and Death is needed because AoE specials do factor in the visible attack, so Swift Sparrow 3 doesn't really work with this. Still, I just wanted to mention this, and those are basically the units of this banner. And now time for the final verdict of this banner. So in my opinion, this is not really a must summon on banner, but still it provides you with good value if you're interested in these units, and if you just find these units adorable, because all of these units can be used as a good one-off copy in my opinion, as I've shown you with the builds. And Marth, being able to make him with a plus and merge unit for your arena core is also a really good thing, which a lot of free-to-play players can appreciate. Sheida's weapon is extremely busted, and facing Caeda is going to be super annoying. But there are counters for that, as I mentioned before, and she can still be taken down because of her low bulk. Merric provides you with a good offensive fast option that can provide healing to your teammates, and Palla is basically just made for Fire Emblem and is extremely strong in that. But still, these are not must-have units in my opinion. We're gonna be getting Golden Week probably at the end of April, so we could get a Hero Fest banner, so it will be having the 5% rate, so that could be something which can be a pretty nice thing for a lot of people. And of course, you could save ARB for the legendary banner at the end of the month. And of course, Fallen banner is also a possibility, so keep that in mind. And that is going to be it for my review and builds. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then please be sure to leave a like and a comment. Helps me tremendously with YouTube's algorithm. And share this video with your friends who are summoning on this banner. And when you subscribe, please be sure to hit the notification bell so that you can always get the updates to my videos whenever I upload. Because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as the faces of the adult versions of these characters once they see this banner. So with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.